Every country on Earth is drowning in debt. Trillions upon trillions of dollars, numbers, so large they've lost all meaning. Governments argue about budgets, politicians promise solutions, and economists debate endlessly. But almost no one asks the most dangerous question of all: who is this debt actually owed to? If everyone is borrowing, then who is lending? And if the system depends on endless borrowing, what happens the moment trust disappears? Tonight, we peel back the layers of global finance to reveal a truth hidden in plain sight, because once you understand debt, you understand power itself. Every country on Earth is in debt. The United States now owes over $38 trillion. The highest figure in its history. The European Union carries around $14 trillion. Japan, almost $9 trillion, even oil-rich nations like Saudi Arabia. Even export giants like Germany and China. All owe enormous sums. But here's the paradox. If everyone owes money, who is actually owed? This is the financial historian, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. Debt isn't just a burden. It's the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every boom and bust, all sit on an invisible scaffolding of IOUs. Follow the chain of creditors long enough and you discover something unsettling. The world doesn't owe money to anyone in particular. It owes it to itself. But that doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. Today, the planet is drowning in over $315 trillion of total debt, nearly 3 times the size of the global economy. To understand how we reached this point, we need to go back to the beginning, long before credit cards, before digital transfers, before Wall Street. National debt was born in war. In 1694, England was fighting France and running out of gold. The king turned to merchants for help. In exchange for a permanent stream of interest, backed by future taxes, they financed the crown. To manage this new system, the Bank of England was created. It was revolutionary. The state could now spend money it didn't yet have. And lenders received something priceless, a promise from the government. A promise that could be traded, bought, sold. This was the birth of the government bond. The seed of the modern financial system. France copied it. The Netherlands refined it. The newly independent United States adopted it to fund its revolution and its westward expansion. National debt was no longer failure. It became credibility. The ability to borrow was the ability to rule. Empires once conquered land to extract gold. Now they conquered trust. Now, instead of conquering land, states issued bonds to extract interest. The battlefield became the balance sheet. Fast forward 3 centuries. Debt has become the world's dominant export. The United States owes $38 trillion. Japan, over $9 trillion. And every 100 days, global borrowing grows by another $1 trillion. Every country owes, every bank lends. Every citizen, through taxes, savings, and pensions, is both debtor and creditor. But who holds the other end of the rope? Let's start with the United States, because its debt isn't just national, it's global. Of that $38 trillion, about half is publicly held. That means it's owed to investors, not to other parts of government. Roughly 2/3 of those investors are American. Banks, pension funds, mutual funds, insurance companies, and the Federal Reserve itself. The remaining 1/3, about $9 trillion, sits in foreign hands. Japan is the largest holder, around $1 trillion. China follows, about $800 billion. Then come the UK, Luxembourg, and Belgium. So when people say America is in debt to China, that's true. But it's only about 2% of the total. Most of the debt America owes is owed to America. The Treasury issues bonds. Banks and funds buy them. The Federal Reserve often buys them back, creating new dollars in the process. Americans pay taxes. Those taxes fund interest payments. That interest flows into American retirement accounts. It's a circular mirror. The debt is real. But the creditor is mostly a reflection of the same system, and this circularity isn't just American. It's global. Japan lends to the US through treasuries. The US lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing nations through the World Bank. Developing nations lend back to advanced economies by parking foreign reserves in Western bonds. It's a planetary game of hot potato. Except the potato is made of promises. Every country holds someone else's IOU. Every promise is secured by another promise. It's like a poker table where every player borrowed their chips from the same house. And the only rule keeping the game alive is that nobody stands up. But there's a fourth layer. The most powerful one of all, the markets. Behind every government bond is a vast web of institutions, hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, central banks. Together, they manage tens of trillions in assets. They are the true arbiters of credit. They decide who borrows cheaply and who pays a premium just to survive. When they lose confidence, currencies collapse. Governments fall. Entire economies can be restructured overnight. Democracy decides who governs. Markets decide who survives. And the ultimate market maker, the modern high priest of this system, is the central bank. Central banks don't just manage debt, they manufacture it. Every time the Federal Reserve or the European Central Bank buys government bonds, new money is created. One balance sheet's liability becomes another's asset. Every dollar in circulation is a unit of debt somewhere else. There is no such thing as debt-free money. Every coin, every bill, every digital dollar. Each carries an invisible IOU. For decades, this loop survived on one thing: confidence. As long as investors believed governments would pay interest, even if never the principal, the machine kept turning. But what happens when confidence wavers? We've seen it before. Greece, 2010. Debt became unpayable. Bondholders panicked. Yields exploded. The ECB and the IMF stepped in. But rescue came with a price: austerity, tax hikes, spending cuts, mass unemployment. For an entire generation, bailout became another word for sacrifice. In Argentina, repeated defaults turned debt into a national curse. In Sri Lanka, fuel shortages and political collapse followed when foreign currency ran out. When the system breaks, the creditors become visible. The IMF, the rating agencies, the anonymous bondholders. Institutions without flags, holding entire nations by the throat. And yet, even after collapse, the same logic returns. New loans replace old ones. Old debts are restructured. The machine resets, with a new name on the same balance sheet. Because in the 21st century, debt isn't designed to be repaid. It's designed to be rolled over. Governments don't plan to pay off their debt. Not now. Not ever. That isn't conspiracy. It's policy. When you or I borrow money, we're expected to repay the principal. Governments operate differently. They treat debt like a rolling subscription. New bonds are issued to pay off old ones. Economists call it refinancing. Interest becomes the real product, the rent charged for stability. And the global economy now depends on that rent. Like a shark that must keep swimming to breathe. The financial system today runs on confidence, not repayment. The United States will never erase its $38 trillion debt. It will refinance it. Forever. Japan has done the same for decades. Its debt now exceeds 250% of GDP, and yet bond yields remain near zero. Investors aren't waiting to be repaid. They're waiting to renew the deal. Why? Because government debt is the safest collateral on earth. A U.S. Treasury bond isn't seen as a liability. It's an asset. The foundation of global markets. Pension funds hold it. Banks pledge it. Central banks treat it as money. The system depends on governments never paying off their debt. Because if they did, the world would lose its most trusted instrument. Imagine if Washington paid every dollar it owed. Banks and funds worldwide would lose their safest asset overnight. The dollar supply would collapse. Deflation would follow. Markets would freeze. Paying off the debt would destroy what makes the economy work. So governments do the opposite. They issue more, not recklessly, but rhythmically. Debt becomes the heartbeat of capitalism, pulsing through pensions, banks, and balance sheets, keeping the system alive. Mortgage, market, and balance sheet on earth. That's why when politicians talk about balancing the budget or paying down the national debt, they're selling an illusion. The goal was never to eliminate debt. It was to keep it sustainable, serviceable, desirable, just enough that the system never stops believing in it. Because once belief fades, the numbers stop mattering, confidence collapses, interest rates spike, and an economy built entirely on rolling promises grinds to a halt. That's the real secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to pay it back. The plan was to keep the world believing it would be a closed loop of trust. And as long as that trust holds, the numbers can stretch almost indefinitely. But trust is not evenly distributed. When we say we owe it to ourselves, that's only half true. Interest doesn't flow equally, it flows upward. From taxpayers, from workers, to institutions, to investors. Debt isn't just a transfer between countries. It's a transfer between classes. That's why global inequality and global debt rise together. The system rewards those who own debt and punishes those who only pay it. If that sounds familiar, it should. It's the same story scaled up, from households to nations, from nations to the planet. Creditors aren't villains, debtors aren't victims. They're two sides of the same engine. The real danger comes when the engine runs out of fuel. When new borrowing can't keep pace with old promises. That's when the question, who's the creditor, stops being abstract and starts being personal. Because at the top of this global pyramid, there isn't one face to blame. It isn't China. It isn't Wall Street. It isn't the IMF. It's all of them. And us. The modern financial system has turned debt into money itself. Governments issue it. Banks multiply it. Investors trade it. Citizens depend on it. The line between debtor and creditor has blurred beyond recognition. Debt once meant bondage. Today it means balance. But if that balance ever tips, if confidence breaks, the illusion ends, and we remember what debt really is. A promise that can't be kept forever. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.